and welcome to Best in Tesla. John McElroy has just made a video about how he thinks it is physically impossible for Tesla to get to the goal of 20 million vehicles by 2030. He thinks never.
I don't think it's ever going to happen.
But I think John has a great deal of flaws in his analysis, and I would like to give my take on this, and we can come back in 5 years' time and see how things are going and who seems to be on track. So let's take a look at the production, growth, demand, and see if we think Tesla will be able to pull this one off, and compare to what John McElroy thinks. And let's dive right in. So John McElroy has been an automotive journalist for more than 40 years. So he knows his stuff when it comes to good old ICE car manufacturers. And I have a great deal of respect for the man, but EVs and especially computers on wheel is where John sometimes misses the mark. He does give a lot of credit to Tesla, so he's not a Tesla hater at all, but like so many others, he has not made the deep dive into really understanding Tesla as a company or their cars, like in 2019 when he was out testing Tesla's full self-driving system, but didn't even know if it was on or not. So he thought he was on autopilot and blamed the car for not driving right, but embarrassingly everyone that knows Tesla could see he was not on autopilot.
But it would drive right off.
As Gastroll made a whole video about, and even more embarrassingly, he went out to do another test because he got called out on the first one of just how wrong he was on everything he did, but he did the exact same mistakes. Again, turning autopilot on, but yanking out of autopilot with the steering wheel straight away, and didn't understand the difference between autopilot and navigate on autopilot. That just make the whole saga even worse, as it didn't navigate, as John pointed out, but it was not on navigate on autopilot, which everyone that has a Tesla knew and could see on his video. So I give John a lot of credit for a lot of the work that he has done and how he's trying to widen his understanding of the EVs by talking to Sandy Monroe and so on, but he has shown us that he also is just an overall auto journalist. He has not made a deep dive into Tesla, trying to truly understand the company and its product, and especially Tesla's production. I think this is something not many outside the Tesla community, and Sandy Monroe, Joe Justice, that knows just how insane the machine Tesla has built, not the car, the gigafactories, and how they have reinvented production. I have made a bunch of videos on this topic if you want to learn more about it, but this is why I would like to try to give my perspective on John's arguments here, that Tesla will not be able to get to the 20 million cars by 2030, or probably never. It is physically impossible according to John. So I would like to give my perspective on this and where I think John made some huge mistakes, underestimating Tesla's production and ability to grow. So firstly, John says Elon always overpromises and underdelivers.
Elon Musk has a habit of overpromising and underdelivering.
I would say it is just the other way around, and John himself actually just seconds later says that Elon always get the job done. And when it comes to not delivering, the only thing John can mention is full self-driving, and yes, Elon still has to deliver on that one, but still one of the biggest problems humans has ever had to solve, so a pretty hard one to predict there. But I have to say, John is wrong when it comes to the car's performance or Tesla's ability to produce cars. Tesla has always underpromised and over-delivered on what the car can do, and when it comes to production, Tesla has been right on the money. They had a huge problem getting the Model 3 off the ground in 2017 and start of 2018, but even though they only got a couple of cars from its target in 2018 of 245,000 units. And in 2019, Tesla said they would produce between 360 to 400,000 vehicles, and they produced 367,000 units. And all the way back in 2014, Elon said they expect to get to 500,000 in production in 2020, and they did just that, produced 506,000 and delivered 499,450 units. In 2021, they guided with 50% growth, and they did 80% growth. So if anything, that was over-delivering and starting to sandbag their numbers a bit, but still have not really missed their production target for the last half decade. So here John is wrong in my opinion about Elon overselling and under-delivering. That is only true about the full self-driving, not really on anything else. Yes, the car models might be delayed, even though the Model Y came out 6 months before and pretty much everyone else has been late with the EVs, but production numbers, the only thing that really matters, and not how many models you have, but how many cars can you produce, which this video is all about. And Tesla has been right on the money, so we have to give Tesla credit here, and not so much to John for his analysis. But why is it that John thinks that it is physically impossible by 2030 to make 20 million cars? Well, firstly, he don't see how Tesla can even have that kind of production up and running so soon. And secondly, he thinks the market is simply going to drown in new EV models that will take sales from Tesla. So I'd like to give my take on those two reasons and why I think Tesla will be able to do this and why John will probably have to eat his own words in 8 years' time. Let's start with the production from its current factories that John only ever sees getting to 5 million vehicles. And as he said, that would be amazing, and it would, but that is how far John is willing to go. 5 million is doable for Tesla, but he cannot see how they can get to 20 million from there on out. So let's just take Tesla's production from their current factory. Firstly, he does believe that Tesla's Shanghai factory will be able to be cranked up to 2 million vehicles, which I also think it will, but he don't think that the Texas factory will be able to do more than that, even though the factory is the third generation of Tesla's factory. So this is not the same thing as the Tesla's first generation factory, that is the Giga Shanghai factory. The Texas factory is very much improved in every single way and is much bigger. In Giga Shanghai, the whole area is 9.3 million square feet of land. And phase 1, the Model 3 line, is about 1 million square feet on the roof, and the same goes for the Model Y line. And then we have the rest of the buildings, so they probably have somewhere between 3 to 4 million square feet of floor space on the roof right now in the Shanghai factory. And the Texas factory is closer to 11 million square feet. And that John thinks that these two factories will produce the same amount of cars is the first point where I think John believes Tesla's sandbagging numbers, and it will turn out to be a big flaw in John's analysis of Tesla's production here. I believe Giga Texas will be closer to producing 3 to maybe even 4 million cars when fully ramped up. Remember, the Texas factory is also much taller building. And when it comes to production, Tesla does count all of its cubic meters of space inside the factory and work in 3D in these hexagon cubes, as I explained before. So someone like Joe just to think that down the road, a factory like the Texas factory would probably be able to produce more like 10 million vehicles on its own. But let's take it down a notch and say, compared to the Shanghai factory and what they are able to produce there, we know they will be at about 1 million in production capacity run rate this summer, in the size that the factory already is. So Texas is about 3 times bigger and is more efficient factory, and is not even the generation 2 of Tesla's factory, that is the Berlin factory. Texas is the generation 3. So on size alone, it should be able to produce about 3 times what Shanghai can as it stands today. So that would be about 3 million. And when we then add in the more efficient factory and production cells and in-house 4680 cells integration and much more. Remember, Tesla improved their production lines weekly. So Tesla would have had thousands of new ideas from the Shanghai factory to the Texas factory to implement into the new factory in Texas. So I would say 3.5 million is not even a stretch. That is highly likely, and probably be able to produce more. But let's say 3.5 million, but we also have to add a little extra because Elon has just said they will actually expand that factory as well. Right now it's about 1.2 kilometers long, but Elon has said it would be 1 mile long when expanded, so 1.6 kilometers long and a quarter of a mile wide. So don't know if they also going to be making the factory a little bit wider, because that would mean 400 meters, and right now the building is about 345 meters wide. But no matter what, Tesla will expand the factory with about 35% of its footprint. So if we say that would also equal about 35% in increase in production for Tesla from the 3.5 million, that would give the Texas factory a production capacity of 4,725,000 units annually. So that is far above the 2 million John is including. Don't think he's really done the numbers on this one, but still missing a couple of factories here, and Elon have said that they will get the Fremont factory to do a 1 million as well. When they get that factory retooled and the new way of producing the car and the gigacasting that will save 600 robots on the Model 3 production line, it is going to be a huge space saver for Tesla at Fremont and all the other things they have learned in the other 3 factories. So I have no doubt that Tesla will be able to get that plan to 1 million as well. And then John talks about the Berlin factory like it is only the 500,000 units in production that is going to come out of that factory. What John seems to either not know or have forgotten is that this is only for the Model Y production line, and that is only phase 1 of 4 of the Berlin factory, and they are already expanding the Berlin factory, as I reported on last week's news show, to the east of the factory where Tesla has bought more land. So when Tesla is actually done with the Berlin factory, with all of its 4 phases, this factory should be able to produce about 2 million cars as well. So if we take all of this production, including the expansion we know is coming in Shanghai, they have already started in Berlin, and Elon has said they would do in Texas, and the ramp up of the Fremont factory, we are getting closer to 10 million here than John's 5 million. 9,725,000 units would be my guess when all phases and expansions of the already existing factories are done. So instead of the 15 millions we have to find to get to Tesla's target, we only have to find 10 million. But that suddenly doesn't seem as impossible as John would like it to be, when we know one factory like the Texas factory can produce almost 5 million cars all on its own when it is expanded. So Tesla could build 2, maybe 3 Texas factories and be done with it. And Tesla has just built 2 factories at once. So why is it that John don't think Tesla will be able to do that again? But I don't actually think Tesla will build just 2 or 3 more factories, as we also heard Elon say maybe 10 more factories. So I don't think they will build as big as the Texas factory in many places. But I think Tesla could easily build more than 1 or 2 factories at the same time. I think Tesla would just start popping up the factories whenever they have found a place and getting permits, and probably want the factories to be in more places so they have more local production all over the world, so minimizing the cost of transportation and emission, and be closer to where the materials are being mined and processed. So we might hear about 1 factory and 6 months later another factory, and 2 months later another factory yet again. So I don't think we should expect Tesla to build just 1 factory and then wait until that's done and ramp that one up and then build another factory. Tesla doesn't work like that. That is the way the old legacy automakers do things, not Tesla. And this is why I think John thinks like this, because he is kind of from the old school automaker industry. But what about the demand, as John is talking about competition is coming? Well, the simple fact is that in places like Italy, 73% of people already wants EVs. In China, we're talking about 69%. And then globally, we have really reached a tipping point of 52%. So now more people wants EVs than ICE cars, according to a new study by MCI. It is only the supply that are not there. And most of the old legacy automakers don't expect to be at more than 50% EVs by 2030. But that demand is already here today. Many don't even expect to be at 100% before 2030, 2040, 2045. Toyota even thinks that 85% of its sale in the US will have tailpipe in 2030. 85%. Bye-bye Toyota, if that's the case. So the big boys, that makes up pretty much all of the old ICE industry, only expect to be about 50%, maybe even less in 2030 combined. And last year there were about 66 million cars sold, but if they only expect to be about 50%, that leaves 33 million vehicles left for Tesla and the other startups to grab. And I don't think that many of the old guys will actually survive this transition to EVs because of the expensive wind down of the ICE engine, the dealership that don't want to sell their EVs, and if what I think, and ARK Invest and Tony Seba and many other things, that the EV will be cheaper than an ICE car equivalent already mid-decade. Who is even gonna buy those 50% ICE cars in 2030 that Legacy still wants to make? No one. So they are in a sea of trouble, and I don't think many will survive, so that will leave an even bigger pie of the car market up for grabs. Let's just say GM, that have over $110 billion in debt and make less money on their ICE business today than Tesla does on 6 times less units sold. If they die, we can add another 6 million units to the pile of cars that need to be made by someone else. And as I said many times before, it is not just Tesla that will sell every EV they make. Everyone that make EVs will sell every EV they make. So it is all about production. And even though John really liked the Kia EV6, and I do too, I think it's a great EV as well, no doubt. But Kia only made a little over 100,000 EVs last year. So even though they have been making EVs for a very long time and they had that great little cone on the roads for many years, they're still only able to produce a little over 100,000 EVs. So only about 5% of their sales are EVs, and they still have 95% ICE cars. So yes, it's an awesome EV, but how many will they be able to produce? And the big boys like Ford and GM did just last year realize the big demand that was for EVs. So we know they do not have the battery deals in place to make those goals a reality. They have to go out now to see if they can find them, and have made 0 deals with mining companies like Tesla has, and this will also slow the old guys down, which will give Tesla even more room to grow. So because the others are moving so slow and have not done their homework so far, I do think the demand is going to be there for Tesla's cars, as they also enter the cheaper market with their upcoming smaller compact car. And of course, if they solve full self-driving this decade, the demand is pretty much endless. The demand doesn't matter anymore. They can just put out all the cars they want on the street as robotaxis and earn a lot of money. But even without full self-driving, I think the demand will still be there, and that Tesla will be able to produce this many cars within this decade. It's not going to be easy, but they do have a shot at it, as they have pretty much all the battery contracts in place. They are already making their own batteries and have all the materials in place for that as well. As Drew has said himself, Tesla will not be battery constrained long term. So in my opinion, the only question is how fast will the Chinese car makers be able to rise and take some of that market share and saturate the car market. I really don't think it will be legacy automakers that will stop Tesla in growing, as John kind of makes it sound like, because they don't even have a plan or a target to close that gap before 2030. Not even close. But I think the Chinese will do all they can to do it. But if we have some of the big boys going bankrupt as well, that will also leave an even bigger market to capture for Tesla and the Chinese. So I really think Tesla has a shot of doing this. But in 4 to 5 years time, we should have a good indication of where this is going. And we can see if John McElroy is right or if my prediction is right. But both our videos are going to be here, and we can take a look back and see how we did. But let me get your guesses down below as well, so we can see if anyone is going to get this one right. What will Tesla be able to produce, and how big are they going to be in 2030? Let me get your best guess in the comments below. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.